Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for January 29, 2025, the Mike Lynch found guilty edition. And we begin with that story from the BBC, as the court in England has announced that Hewlett-Packard won a multi-billion-dollar fraud case against Mike Lynch and Autonomy over its acquisition of his software company. Autonomy was sold to HP for $11 billion. In 2011, the next year, HP had to write off $8.8 billion of the purchase. The conclusion of the court found after 2 years of trial is believed to be the biggest civil fraud case in the UK. It was heard for over 9 months. The court's opinion is being circulated, has not been made public yet, but we'll take a look at that on the Daily Compliance News when it does. Next up, from the Financial Times, consultants in the ESG space find sustainability gaps as net zero pressure increases. As companies grapple with how they can reach net zero carbon emissions by 2015, consulting companies are engaged in a struggle with their own, how to develop the skills to meet the rising demand from clients seeking sustainability advice. There needs to be an awful lot more people coming into this space, and the ones that are coming in right now really don't seem to be too knowledgeable on that topic. Of course, that's because it's making it up as we go along. Next up, from SecurityWorld, Drew Todd reporting, first-time contributor to the Daily Compliance News. He reports that Volkswagen fired a cybersecurity whistleblower. In 2021, a senior employee at Volkswagen internally reported vulnerabilities on the company's payment platform, and also said that the company needed to self-disclose this to government regulators. This led Volkswagen to terminating the employee, rather unceremoniously, I would note. Although Volkswagen does have an internal whistleblower system, and they do claim that they won't tolerate retaliation, they fired him. So, good question, as the author said. So why was this employee fired? And our final story comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, and it talks about the potential sanctions that the Biden administration will level against Russia if Russia invades Ukraine. Obviously, this is on a lot of people's minds, and the Biden administration is narrowing its target for a barrage of sanctions, including Russian banks, state-owned companies, needed imports. Though the strategies have difficulties or obstacles, I think that if you're doing business with Russia, you need to start studying these immediately, because these could come to pass in a very quick way, particularly if Russia follows through with its threats to invade Ukraine. So all I can say is watch this space. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.